Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. Andrew Swiler is here from Lanteria.net. Now, Andrew is a strategic entrepreneur and an investor. He's the CEO of Lanteria, which is a leading business/productivity software. And Andrew is all about leadership and understanding these global business trends. He's a master of remote teams, acquiring SaaS company, deal flow, best practices for global business, and so much more. But we'll let Andrew be in the driver's seat and tell him just, Andrew, what has you passionate, focused, excited these days?
Uh, what makes me excited right now is I work in software and a lot of people are pretty nervous. Nobody really knows where things are going to go. AI has made some pretty big impact. There's some people that think software is going to disappear and everyone's just going to type things into an AI engine and build their own software. But I think at these inflection points it's exciting because, everything could go to zero, or you could be at the front of, a giant wave that you're going to surf over the next few years. So, the last few years have been, I wouldn't say stagnant, they've been exciting, but it's been a lot of consolidation inside of our everyone's different markets. And it's exciting to see sort of where this is going to go now.
Right, I'm with you. I can't tell if I need to be more optimistic or less optimistic, or if I need to like expand my mind or focus more. It seems like multiple times a day there's some other like subscription SaaS AI product, but then I also am cruising the YouTubes and I see where they say like, oh, well, if you want to code this app, you just type this and it'll just spit it out for you. So I feel like multiple times a day I'm just swinging from one extreme or the other. And so as far as things work in practical terms, what are you up to? Like, how's your company doing, and how are you preparing for this possible AI future?
So we acquired this company about 18 months ago. So the company was, I'd call legacy SaaS. So the company was started in about 2012, built on sort of antiquated technologies. So we've spent a lot of time sort of studying the market, what our customers want, talking to our current customers, exploring what, potential customers want, what our competitors are doing. So a lot of our work has been, gathering and learning because we came from outside of HR. Like I have no background in HR in the past, so this has just been a big learning experience for me. What we're trying to do is take a product that, is 10 years old. It's been updated a little bit, but really rework how it is now. So right now it's built on top of Microsoft SharePoint. What we're trying to do is actually build it, obviously part of it is as software as a service, but the other part inside of Microsoft Teams. So to move everything, because we've seen most of our clients are living inside of Microsoft Teams, which, if you're not in a Microsoft company, people think like, why would people be using this product? But Microsoft Teams is massive. It's a massive distribution, massive product that any company with over 100 employees that's not a tech company is probably using Microsoft Teams. And what we've seen is we want to build a whole experience as a Microsoft Teams where the whole company and the HR team can live inside of this one space and be able to use the same thing that we already have built or other competitors like Bamboo HR or HiBob have built, but living inside of Microsoft Teams. So we're excited about that. And then also the fact that Microsoft's layered in Copilot over the last 6 months, and we've been able to test out what's going on there. We work in HR, and HR is not the most technical group of people inside of a company. Even marketing, they have the technical marketing person that does all the integrations and puts it together. HR doesn't really have that role. And so what we're excited about is that we think, at least in the next couple of years, exactly what you were just saying, that people are going to be able to use just normal language and say, hey, I want you to create this dashboard with this information about about this part of our company from this date to this date, and I want it to look like this, and this with these colors, and spit out this dashboard for me. And we think that pretty soon that's going to be a reality where Copilot will spit that out for you, take the information from our product, put it in front of you inside of Microsoft Teams. You'll have the dashboard, and you'll be able to share it directly with your team as it happens. So that's kind of the future that we see, at least the immediate future. I personally think, humans aren't going away. I know a lot of people are scared. I still think in 50 years or in our lifetime, humans are still going to be the main driver for almost any company. So that's why I also think human resources is going to be an important part of that.
You're giving me so many flashbacks to like when I was in college and like taking math classes, and they'd give you these like complex problems, and they say like, this can be solved like straightforwardly with an algorithm, but this other problem here requires some kind of like thinking and figuring out how to like architect the problem. And I had so much fun when I was younger. Like I had a day job way back when where they put me in charge of some like setting up all these like Microsoft SharePoint server farms. And like when I was in college,
Really?
I remember like Joel on software and reading all the blogs about that. And it was just
Okay.
it's fun to think about like all the ways that like these software projects can go wrong, but then somehow just by like talking with other like computer science majors, or like by learning about some of these kind of like just like principles of making software, somehow it became fun. It lit parts of my brain on fire I didn't even know were there. So like, do you have any advice on how to tap back into this, like the excitement, the enthusiasm? Because like, some people, software or solving problems, it's just kind of like boring businessy stuff. But then if you're on the right people, and if you think the right things, like you can get really excited about like building these kind of software solutions and like changing the world. So like, what do you have to say about just like tapping into that kind of like the childlike, just blowing your brain up and getting excited about software?
Well, it's funny because I'd say like 2 years ago, the no code movement was this big movement where everyone was talking about now you're not going to have to learn how to code. There's all these tools, Zapier, all this stuff you're going to be able to put all these things that couldn't fit together before without code now could fit together. The issue was a lot of it was just kind of crappy. Like it worked for like if you just needed like a simple tool that you needed to automate something inside of, you're a small company. It was like, okay, cool. We're going to slap this together. It's going to work. And that's it. But what people didn't really think about was that beyond a one person shop or a 10-person company, you need to have sort of scalable solutions and things that are secure and certain safety. So the no code thing, it continues. I mean, it's still a huge movement, and I think it's super cool for people that just want to hack around with things. So for what you're talking about, like people just to go out and test things, I think there's so many tools out there, no code tools, like I said, using Zapier, using I can't even remember some of the other ones we used to use, that allow you to just build things over the weekend, like that you just want to tinker around with. But beyond that, I think what you were talking about with AI before, I think if people are interested, the biggest challenge with what you were saying about AI is that you can get it to spit out whatever you want, but if you don't understand what the software is doing, you won't be able to see the mistakes or if it's done it right or if it's done it wrong or if it works. So I'd say one of the key things that I've encouraged people to do is get mega basic coding skills in some language that interests you, even if it's just Python. Go learn a little bit because with the tools that are available now, if you just know the basics, you'll be able to build all this stuff as long as you can just proof what ChatGPT is spitting out to you. You'll be able to build these tools just for yourself, and I think it's fun to build it for yourself. And even I know people that work in big companies that have built their own tools just to help them in their day-to-day work. And and they love it. You feel like you built something. You don't have to worry. Some people they sit and they think about the big startup idea and how I'm going to go raise $1 million for this. It's like, just go build something for fun that fixes a need that you have, and who knows where it's going to go.
I love it. Scratch your own itch. And it seems like you're
Yeah.
talking about like the skill of being an editor in some way, right? In
Yeah.
like having like especially like using Chat GPT of like kind of preempting the mistakes that it might be making and saying like, hey, I want you to do this and this, but don't do that and that. And here's some kind of edge cases here. And even when that comes out, you kind of like hit it from other angles. And yeah, like you're giving me even more flashbacks to even like recent years when I butted heads with some of these Zapier type dudes when they would set something up and I'd be like, well, couldn't someone like inject this or have some kind of unexpected input there,
Yeah.
or couldn't that hit it in the wrong way? And so I think that's huge. Like there's a big difference between creating a kind of like a connecting two different systems and actually like dealing with all the ways things can go wrong and all the logic that happens in there. And so as far as like
It's true.
the HR software that you build, like what does that mean? Like what kind of solutions is it fixing that maybe aren't taken care of without your product?
I mean, our solution, now HR software is sort of par for the course. Like if your company, if you have over 20 employees and you're not using a software like ours, you're probably losing money and time inside of your software processes. I mean, if you think back 10 years ago, there was, filing cabinets full of data and information about employees. You'd have their records, you would have all their information about their insurance, their pay stubs. I remember one of my first jobs, they would bring an envelope with your pay stub and drop it on your desk every other Friday. All that stuff now lives inside of a system like ours. So, I mean, ours connects to companies like ADP, and we're able to take, even just to give like a full life cycle of an employee. Employee applies on LinkedIn, goes into our applicant tracking system. You get all their data. Even when you're doing like personality tests, that's all in there. You say they're hired, gets moved into core HR. Now that person, when they get onboarded, has a whole onboarding process that lives inside of our system. They can learn about the company. There's continuing education in there. They see all their pay stubs, all their performance management, all their one-on-ones, notes from how they're doing, all the employee engagement surveys, all that lives in there. And then also, like, if they are sick or they're on vacation, they keep track of all their time and attendance in there. They submit, vacation applications. And then if they get fired or they leave the company, all their offboarding materials there, everything they need to exit the company. So all this stuff used to be paperwork that went back and forth and you had to track, or there were just point solutions, a time and attendance app that was out there, but it didn't do all this other stuff. So now there's a ton of tools that automate this. And now sort of the next level is a lot of companies like Lattice, and we've been doing this too using Power BI, are getting into more analytics. So taking HR from being, most HR companies, most HR people I talk to, their focus is on hiring and retention, and that's it. Like, how many people did I hire? How many roles? How long did it take me? What did I spend? And how many employees did I retain this year? And that's it. And they don't want to, they're not getting into granular statistics about, how this person's performance has been, how that impacts the bottom line of their department, how this manager handles this, how many one-on-ones are they doing. So a lot of this stuff now can be tracked. And the question is getting HR people to do that, and even just getting them the budget. And we try and sell them on that. Say like, hey, if you do this, you can sell the, CEO of your company on bigger goals and bigger things you want to do. Because the HR people, nobody's there to just do compliance and all this menial work. They're there to help people. Usually, most of the HR people I know, they're very they're people oriented. So we try and free up their time to do that.
Well, wonderful. And I like the way that you think, because this whole mindset of there's a map. It's like it's personal and it's impersonal at the same time, right? It's like you
Yeah,
have a map and you kind of have like a maze or a flow chart, and you have an object person of some kind, and you just kind of want to move them and put them on one path or another, and use the analytics and say like, well, how well is this going? Are they getting stuck? Is this the way we want them to go? And usually sometimes you think of like a customer funnel and kind of where you want to go, but then
yeah,
a HR person's job, their customer, so to speak, is that employee. And
yeah,
as you said, many times, if you don't have a handle on this or you're not leveraged with software, the only focus is on the beginning and are they still on? And when you have things in a map, then you can optimize and you can kind of think of like better ways to make this run more smoothly. And so that's cool how then the selling point then is the upside, because you say, well,
yeah.
sure, there is like the pain of digitizing all the old school or getting people on board with the system, but if you can break through that barrier, then look at all of these like bigger goals that you can pursue. But as a big thing with software is that human factor, right? The just getting
Yeah.
people to start using things. So what sort of difficulties do you come across when, if people are maybe dug in with the old way, or they don't want to put up that kind of the work up front to then get the delayed gratification later? Like, how do we convince people? How do we sort of sell people on using this kind of software?
So I always, I mean, possibly to our own detriment, but me from a sales perspective, I always tell people that if you're not doing these things offline already, talking to your employees, building out the right systems. No, the software is here to facilitate for you. It's not here to do the job. We don't have a software that we put in from day one and we say, hey, here's how you do your job. We have a software that can be tailored to the way you're doing your job now. We can, of course, from an implementation perspective, help you, give you some tips. But if you're not doing this stuff already, the software is not going to do it for you. If you like, HR is a people business, and if the managers and the HR people aren't talking to their people and getting feedback already, our system isn't going to do anything because it's all about the feedback that you're already actively going after, just making it easier to do and easier to sort of track. So we always try and be pretty transparent with people on that front. We do because we don't focus on tech companies. We focus, like I said, Microsoft users can be, I would say in boring industries a lot of times. We do get a lot of companies that come to us with a system that's built out because they might have 1,000 employees, 2,000 employees. They have a system and they want to keep doing it this way. We have one of our biggest clients is a bank. They came to us, they were running their whole HR process on an Excel spreadsheet. And they came to us and they said, we want to replicate this Excel spreadsheet in your system. And we were like, what? Like, why? Why do you want to do that? And they're like, because people use it. And we know people use it, but it's not secure. So we want to replicate it so they just keep doing the same systems inside of yours. So they end up spending a ton of money adapting our system to follow sort of their workflows and follow what they were doing. Where typically, if it's a smaller company and they're a little more flexible, we try and say to them, hey, this is great, your system, but here's what, the bell curve of people are doing. There's like the outliers, but this is what most people are doing. And we recommend that you follow sort of what they're doing because this system that you're trying to install is like fitting a square peg in a round hole. And it would make way more sense to sort of follow what other people are doing. And we think it would help you in this way, this way, and this way. And sometimes you get it to work, sometimes you don't. And I mean, the biggest reason for failure in these types of companies not having an owner and having somebody that's inside of HR that's sort of championing this and talking to the team. And when the team has a problem and asks a question, like the HR person jumps in right away and helps them. If that's not there, if they just expect like, well, we're just going to install this and it's just going to work, it usually fails because the HR person has to be the driver. And we've seen that for our software and for big companies like Workday, one of our competitors, it's the same thing. I mean, the people who I know that have Workday you might spend $1 million to implement Workday. And if the HR team is not there to run the system, it just falls apart and they end up spending the money and just lighting it on fire.
Okay, so some of these lessons I'm getting from your answers here is that it's important to have like a hero or heroes or people who are actually like behind using this. The software is not magic, and it might not just be an easy replacement. And if there are difficulties in changing the way things are done, then maybe the answer is to stop looking at the past and not be so focused on yourself. It's like with like this bank in particular, it sounded like, well, they were stuck on this Excel spreadsheet because that's how it was done and that's what they were just like so dug in with doing. But then you're saying, well, there's other similar businesses out there, right? There's other banks out there with the same problems and the same needs. And you say, well, kind of look outside the box and look at how they do it. And they have the same problems. They need to get to the same place, but they do it without the Excel spreadsheet. So instead of just
Yeah.
thinking that you're so unique and special in that way, you say, well, look at all these other people who are having a way easier time instead of you being just stuck on, I just want to keep things doing it this way, but still scale. Look at how they do it, maybe unlearn it and relearn in a better way
Yeah.
to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we try and get companies to do that. Sometimes it fails. Sometimes they just want to keep doing things the way they were. And they come to us because we do have an adaptable system compared to others. I mean, we have competitors where this is what it does out of the box and you gotta, fit your peg in there and get it to work. Where we do have the capacity to adapt it, but we try and keep them on the rails typically.
And is there any way that people kind of tend to go wrong after a while? Like, you go in there, you set them up, you get them going, but then sometimes things can kind of backslide or drift back to how they were. So does anything come to mind as far as ways that it can go off the rails? Maybe not at first, but just after a while through some misuse on accident?
Yeah, I mean, we do have HR software is kind of strange. Like people don't think about this, but HR software is one of the few pieces of software besides email that everyone in the company uses the same piece of software. So if you think about like accounting or Salesforce or CRMs, things like that, those are very siloed inside of certain groups. Where HR software, pretty much everyone in a company has to touch the HR software, at least some part of it, because they need to use their time and attendance, they need to get in for their documents. So it has to be pretty user friendly. Where it falls apart is typically frustration in the employees that can't figure out how to use the system. And for example, we've invested since we took over a lot of money in our help desk, so people could by themselves not implement our system, but by themselves use the system when it is set up. So we've spent a lot of time and money into making it easier for those end users. Because before we bought the company, the team always just thought about the point of contact. They thought about their HR manager, and that was sort of like the person that the prototypical person they were building for. And it's like, no, no, no. You got to build for like the guy in the mail room that has to use the software 1 day per year and just needs to log in, get in, and do his one thing. Because he's going to be the guy that pisses off the HR guy when he's constant, every 6 months he's asking him, hey, I need my password, or how does this work, or how do I do this? It has to be super easy. So the biggest breakdown is in just usability. The second biggest breakdown is in turnover. Whenever there's turnover inside of an HR team, for us, is usually danger. Because I mean, you as a marketer knows, like, what's the first thing a new CMO of a company does? They install a new CRM into the company, or they change certain things inside of the tech stack, because that's the easiest win and the easiest thing to demonstrate what you're doing. And usually they want to bring what they've already used in the past. So for us, that's usually the other biggest failure point, is somebody inside of HR leaves and there's turnover, and the person that was that owner no longer is there, and the new person wants to kind of show what they're doing.
And change things up, which is good and bad, right? It's good for them because they get the easy win that's familiar to them, but then it can get everyone else really flustered. And so from your answer there, I'm getting that, well, it takes a lot of mental work to make things simple. And even though something might be simple for you, it still might not be simple enough. And then the other side of the coin there is any kind of new system. I mean, it's always so frustrating. I mean, maybe 10, 15 years ago, the first time I went to Twitter, I was like, I don't even understand this. And now I use things like Twitter or X without even thinking. But the first
Yeah.
time you see it, or you try to go through those first weeks or months of growing pains, it's so irritating and so aggravating. You hate it so much. And the next thing you know, you've been using the software a little bit every day,
Yeah.
and then it's like second nature to you. And so we've been having these kind of fun ideas and talks about software and making it work and about your solutions. But as far as you and your company and who you want to attract, if someone's listening to our podcast today and they want to go and check out your company, who's the right person for you and what should they go do?
I mean, people, as far as customers go, like I said, we look for companies that have about 200 plus employees, and they're using Microsoft. So typically it's the HR person, but we look for that type of profile to come to us. We are working, I mean, for me, from a marketing perspective, that's one of the biggest challenges in this company. Like when we took over, they weren't even spending money on marketing really. They weren't really out there trying to sell the product. So we've had to make some big changes. And now we're trying to attract some new types of customers, spending a lot of time and money on building out content in HR and building up like our respectability in HR. Because before it was more of just a focus on the technology and the things that our product can do. But now we're really working hard on trying to get to know the HR people, writing about them, talking to them, doing interviews with them. So if they want to get to know us, they can go to lanteria.com, lanteria.com, and take a look at what we do, see our software, and of course get in touch with our sales team, which could be me on one of the sales calls, could be somebody from our sales team. I try and do some of the sales calls to get to know new customers coming in. But yeah, take a look.
Well, wonderful. I can definitely tell you're a software guy, right? You like to get the anecdotes and the data and kind of get the user stories and always just get those insights, make the connections and improve. And so if that sounds like you, if you're a company with 200-ish employees and you want your HR process to be less painful, to be better used without that turnover, without that frustration, there is a better way, and that way is at lanteria.com. Go there now, schedule that call, see what the possibilities are, see what can be done. And so, Mr. Andrew Swiler, as we're wrapping up our conversation, we've kind of jumped around on all sorts of topics, but I like to kind of wrap things up with a fun quote or lesson that my guest likes or just comes to mind. So putting you on the spot here, does anything come to mind as far as wrapping up our conversation, a quote or lesson from you?
Quote? No, I'm terrible at quotes. I
It can be
do.
from someone else is what I mean, but just like
No,
just
no,
what comes to mind.
I'm
Well, the
terrible at other
lesson.
people's quotes. I'm not good at like people in quotes don't really inspire me. There's just like things and concepts. I like I think a lot of people give up on things too quickly. I think they don't see that there are changes that can be made or adaptations that'll help them push forward. I think a lot of people see it black and white. It's like I either win or I lose. And what they don't understand is there's sort of an in between or another way to go. And I think a lot of people need to learn to kind of push through things. And if things are difficult, there's probably another way and another option, and they should just stay positive.
I love it. Well, see, you have a quote in there somewhere, right? As far as
Somewhere.
stay positive and persist and figure out a way. Don't just give up on the first try. Mr. Andrew
Yeah.
Swiler from Lanteria.com. Wonderful speaking with you.
Thanks, Robert. Great to be here.